I'm sure you've heard my story of my first political memory is Nixon resigning office. And I won't bore you with the long story here, but I was at a youth camp. My parents were youth group advisors in the Methodist Church in Lakeside, Ohio. And we got called down one night. I'm too young to really understand like the politics of Nixon. I'm a very, very little kid, but we all get called down to the cafeteria, which is filled with these like 70s style benches. Like they're the opposite of plastic. They're so authentically wooden that if you like move back and forth, you're going to get splinters in your legs. And it's on the shore of Lake Erie, so you can smell like the fried fish in the place. And somebody brings a little transistor radio to the front, and they play Nixon's speech. And to me, I'm like 5 years old maybe when this is happening. My brain is translating Nixon saying something like this: bad people are out to get me. And as a result, I can no longer govern effectively. So I'm going to leave. I literally imagined him, John, kind of doing a barrel roll off the stage and sneaking out a back door and jumping on a helicopter because these bad men were out to get him. And then when the speech was over, and let me say the Methodists that I hung out with were, as far as I could tell, it's like a 5-year-old kid, the most moderate people I'd ever been around. Like if you had to describe them as a color politically, they were beige, right? They were just like as ordinary as they could be. They started clapping, and then they started giving him like there was a standing ovation in the room. And as a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, because Nixon has escaped. Bad people were out to get him. Like to me, the president was a superhero. And then they stopped clapping and they start talking to each other. And what I remember hearing was something like this: like one of the persons standing next to me turns to somebody else and says, "I'm glad they finally got that fucking son of a bitch." And I was like, "Whoa!" Like, is it number one? Methodist never dropped the f bomb. Like that Methodist didn't curse, but it wasn't just the language that struck me. It was like my entire understanding of politics got turned upside down. Like presidents weren't superheroes; presidents were supervillains. And I think in many ways, the trauma of Nixon's resignation in kind of, and here's the historian speaking, right? In the aftermath of 1968, the assassination of King, the assassination of Robert Kennedy, the police riot at the Democratic National Convention, the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. I think there's a reason why people look at my generation and say, wow, what a cynical, uninvolved group of people. And I think my generation kind of looked at what our parents were handing us and we're like, well, this is bullshit, you know, like they've given us a completely corrupt system. Now, let me say, I think that we've handed it off to the next generation in this in the same way. So shame on us. But I understand my students when they come to my classroom today and they say, well, what can I do about it? Right? There's nothing I can do about it. Like I'm a kind of a helpless victim in the system. But I think like that was the moment for me that shifted things. I mean, when Reagan got elected, I was kind of caught up in the rhetoric of optimism. And it took me a while to figure out what I think Reagan actually was, which was, wildly unproductive for the United States. Although I think we still live in the age of Reagan, it's not a good one as we sit here on August 4th, 2024, and consider kind of the political state of things. I think in retrospect, it's not hard to trace. I'd call it the age of Reagan, but like this stuff is happening in the 60s forward on the right in terms of organizing, that we live in a very predictable world, even if it feels to people like, where the hell did this come from? I think a little bit of historical study would help you understand that it kind of makes sense, unfortunately.